Okay, I wanted to do a quick tutorial to kind of reintroduce you to JavaScript. It's been a little while since we did some web assignments. So this is a game I'm going to help us create called Multiplication Math Game. Very basic game, and the objectives are to, like I said, help us review JavaScript, HTML, but also show you guys how to use persistent data in a web browser. And that is in preparation for us to start using a backend eventually. So right now we're going to be using the browser for storage, which that can be a good solution for a lot of applications, but sometimes you'll want to have even more persistent data across multiple devices. If you have user profiles that you need to store or something like that, obviously you need a backend for that. But for a standalone game where you just want to keep track of like a high score for the browser for a particular user that happens to be using the device, the browser can be a great option for storage. Alright, so the requirements for this game I have written out here. We're going to make a game that gives the user multiplication problems and then 4 answer choices for each one. And each time they choose the correct answer, the displayed tally of their score increases by 1. We also want to display the high score for that game. And the game needs to begin when they click the start button. So we'll have to create a button that says start. And then after 10 seconds, the game is over. And I guess the goal is to answer as many questions correctly as possible in those 10 seconds. And then if their score is higher than the high score after those 10 seconds, it will become the new high score, and that score should be persistent, meaning it'll still be there the next time they visit that site using that browser and device. Okay, so there's a lot of things going on here. Let's break it apart into different pieces. I like to usually start by creating the user interface, make it look correct before I add any of the actual functionality. So first off, let's make a comment out of this because I want to hang on to this. These objectives and description and stuff, but I don't want it to interfere with my code. So I'm going to put this inside of a script tag and a comment. Let's close that script tag. Okay. And I'm also going to need to put all of this inside HTML. But first, let's save this as an HTML file. Let's call this mathgame.html. Okay, and I am using a program called TextMate. That's very similar to Notepad++, but it's only available on a Mac, and I'm using it because I'm using a Mac. So if you're on a different computer, like a Windows computer, you should be using something like Notepad or Notepad++, and that's fine. Either way works. All right, so we've got a script. Of course, the script here is just a comment. This doesn't actually do anything. Let's start creating the user interface in some HTML. And I guess let's just include the script inside of our HTML tag. So I'll put an open HTML tag there, a close HTML tag somewhere near the bottom. And I'm not sure why it auto-tabbed there, but that's okay. All right, let's start by adding 4 buttons, because we know that we're going to have 4 buttons. So button ID equals btn1. That might be a good name. And then let's just start with having it say nothing. We'll say the number 0, even though that's not going to be a correct answer probably. Let's have another button. ID equals btn2, also 0. And then let's do that again 2 more times. So just copy and paste, change the IDs to be button 3 and 4. Okay. And let's just save it and take a look at it for now. So I already actually did Control S, but for your sake I'll click on File, Save. And then we open it. And that's what it looks like. So we've got 4 buttons there. That's not really very easy for the user to click on. For one thing, they're very small. So let's add some styling real quick. Let's say style, close style, and button font size will be 36. Save that, refresh the page. A little bit bigger. Let's go even bigger though, or maybe let's just add some padding. Let's say padding 100. And padding just adds some space around the text. So now they're giant. Maybe that was a little too much. Let's try 50. Oops. There we go. And yeah, that's how I want it. Yeah. Okay. And we could even put them on in a grid, so 2 rows of 2. Let's put a break right there. Then it'll show up on 2 different rows. Okay. Cool. Let's also put the answer above it, or the equation, I should say. So we'll start with a question. What is the answer? And then the question will be 0 times 0. So this is what the basic interface is going to look like. Oops, let's make it be on its own line. And the next line there. And let's also make this stuff be bigger, because it's kind of weird to have buttons huge and not also the text. So what if we just say button comma body, so both of them will have that same styling. Okay. Let me also put this inside of a div because we need it to change later. So let's say div id equals equation. I guess it's not really an equation. Calculation. Operation. That's what we want. Sure. Okay. And then close the div. That'll also give it some more padding. Actually, it didn't, did it? Let's include div here. Nice. All right, that's how I want it. Yep. All right, so right now, obviously, the answer to this is 0, so any of them would be correct, but we don't have any functionality yet, and we don't care yet. Let's make sure it looks exactly how we want it. We need to have a button that says start game, right? So let's create a button. How about above the very top? Or maybe right below where it says what is the answer. Yeah, let's do it above. Doesn't really matter where. Okay, so button. This one will say start, and then oh, that's very big. Nice. Let's have a break after that, so it's on its own line. And the what is the answer is small again because I changed body to say div. So we can also make it body. And that'll be big again. We are running out of vertical space though, so if this were on a smaller device, it would probably be, you'd probably have to scroll down to get to that. So let's, just to keep things safe, let's take away a lot of that padding. Okay, this will do. Alright, let's start adding some functionality. So first things first, we want to make the game start when we click start. So let's do an on-click for that. On-click equals start game. And when the game starts, really what we want to have happen is we want to have a timer that counts down from 10. So let's do that. Let's go inside script, and let's say function start game, and then let's see, how can we do this? I guess that means we'll have to have a timer displayed as well, huh? Or we could just have the timer invisible. Now let's give it to them so it's easier to understand, or it's easier to see how much time they have left. So let's add one more thing. Or maybe we could just start it, we'll just create it when they click the start button. So I'll have it hidden first. So div hidden time left. And this can start at 10. Close div. For now, let's unhide it just to make sure it's where we want it, and then I'll hide it. So time left 10. Sure, looks good. Okay, so let's say hidden. And then the very first thing I want to do when they click start game is unhide it. So we need to have an ID for this. So time display could be a good ID for that. Let's say document dot get element by ID time display dot hidden equals false. So let's see if that part works first. So at the beginning it's hidden, I click start, it's unhidden. Good. We also want it to start counting down though. So let's say we need to have a variable for that. Let's say let time left equal 10. That's at the beginning of the game. Let's also reset it every time they click start game so that they don't have to refresh the page or anything if they're going to do this. So let's say, oh, that might make it easy for them to cheat though, huh? If they just keep clicking start game, they'll just keep refreshing their score or the time left. So maybe let's not do that. Let's just take whatever the time left is and decrease it on an interval. So let's say set interval. For every second, we'll have the timer change. So we'll say function. This is the function we want to have happen every, oops, that's a comma, every 1,000 milliseconds, which means every second. So we will decrease time left by 1. I'll say minus equals 1. And then we also want to show the value of time left in this spot. So time display. We already have that. Maybe we should save a reference to that rather than just access it through its long get element by ID thing again. Let's save a reference to it. So I will just do let time display equal the element we get by the ID time display. Yeah, and then we can do time display dot hidden equals false, and we can also inside of the interval say time display dot inner HTML equals time left, whoops, in quotes, not that, time left, and then whatever timer is, so time left. Maybe I should capitalize this one too. Alright, let's see if that works. So I click the refresh, I click start, and then every 10 seconds, or I mean every 1 second, it decreases by 1. So it looks like it's working. You'll notice when it gets down to 0, it'll continue to go down into negative numbers. And that's because we haven't set up an end game procedure yet. So let's do an if statement inside here. We'll say right after we've subtracted 1, or maybe after we've displayed it, we'll say right after that, if time left equals 0, 2 equal signs, whoops, then we will say, we can just easily set it back to, oh, no. Let's just say if it's ever less than that, if time left is, I'm deciding there's a good way to do this and a bad way to do this. The good way is harder, the bad way is easier. Let's do it the good way. Okay, so if time left does equal 0, we'll just end the interval itself, which means we're going to have to create a reference to the interval. Okay. Let's say timer interval equals, and that's not how you spell interval, my bad. Okay, and then inside here, oops, what did I do that for? Inside here, we'll just say clear interval, timer interval, and that will stop it from changing after it gets to 0. Let's also create this outside of the function. So I'll say let timer interval be a member variable or a global variable, kind of. It's outside of the function, so everybody else will have access to this as well. Let's just say let timer interval. So it doesn't equal anything, but it exists. And then right here it gets assigned a value. It gets assigned this thing. And then in this thing, eventually it's going to equal 0, and therefore it'll say, okay, stop doing your interval. That's what clear interval does. All right, let's see if this works. So I say start. If it gets down to 0, it should clear the interval. If not, I guess we'll have to debug it and figure out why. Or if it gets 0, that's good, but it doesn't go negative. Perfect. Okay. So we've got it to trigger when the time runs out. Now we want to make it tell them that the game is over and all of that. But maybe before we can do that, we should add the other functionality. Let's add the actual operation randomly, as well as the random choices they can click on. So let's do that. When the start game button is clicked, we will call a function. Let's say next question. And the next question function will simply choose a random operation and then change the buttons to equal 4 random multiplication results, and one of them should be the correct answer. Okay, let's do that. So function next question. We need to access that operation div, so we'll say let document, or actually let's make it a name. Let operation div equal document.getElement by ID operation, and then we can just say operation div dot inner HTML equals, and we need to create a random operation here. So let's assume that we've already got it. We'll do this in a second, but let's say first num, and then we'll have the multiplication operator as text, so that's just a character, and then the second num of the operation. Okay, good. And first num and second num, let's make those be random. All right, so let's say let first num equal math dot random multiplied by, let's only let these be up to the 12s, so 12 times 12. The highest possible number we can ever see is 144, because that's what 12 times 12 is. All right, so that'll be the highest, but let's also say, just so it's a whole number, we'll say math dot, I think ceil, it's the opposite of floor. Yeah, we'll find out. Okay, I'll say ceil for ceiling. It's like if you get a decimal number, round up to the nearest whole number. So let's see if that works. I'll do the same thing first with the second number too. So second num. And I also want to have the result. So correct answer will just be the multiplication of these two numbers. So first num multiplied by second num. All right. Let's just refresh that page. We click start, and it didn't change what we saw here. So let's see if there's an error really quickly. Inspect element and console. Oops. On line 46, it looks like I have an extra closing parenthesis. So line 46, I have an open, I have an open, I have a close, I have a close. And yes, that is extra, it appears. Okay, let's try it again. Click start. There it is, 3 times 8. And if I click start again, it'll give me different ones. But it doesn't, whoa. That was, oh, because it's creating a new interval every time I click start. So a few different ways we could solve this. One, we could just make the start button disappear, because we don't want them to be able to do that. Let's make the start button be hidden as soon as they click it. So let's say ID for the start button equals start btn, and then when they click start game, or when they click the button, we will say document.getElementById start btn dot hidden equals true. All right, or we could say disabled. That'd be cool too. Disabled. So now when I click it, now it's disabled. They can't click it again, which is perfect. Okay. All right. But it is giving us a random number each time, or a random operation each time. It looks like 8 times 12. Perfect. Let's also make the next question function give us the multiple choice options. So let's say, all right, next question. We've already done the operation. Now let's do the set the buttons to have random answers, and one should be the correct answer. All right, so let's start by just saying which one we want to be the correct answer, and that'll be a 1 and 4, right? It could be any of those 4. So let's say let correct answer index equal math.floor of, and then we'll have the indices 0, 1, 2, and 3. So I'll just say math.floor of math.random. So this is to round a random decimal number down, and the random number will be anywhere from 0 to 4, but not including 4. So yeah, it'll give us a number between 0, 1, 2, or 3. All right, and then we want to assign that button, or you know what, maybe to make it easier, let's just make it be a range of 1, 2, 3, or 4. So if we just add 1 to that result, then it'll give us a random number in the range 1, 2, 3, or 4. And that way we can just use that random number as part of the ID. So we can construct the ID of the button using that random number. All right. And it's actually probably a better idea to set this after we've already set all 4 of them to be a random answer. So let's hold on to that. We'll use that later. Let's say first rand answer equals, and this is just going to be basically the same thing that we had here. But oops, not there, not all that way. Let's just say get rid of these. So we know that this is going to give us a number between 0 and 12. It's actually 1 through 11, isn't it? Oh no, it rounds up, so it's going to be 1 through 12. So let's put that here, and this here. Perfect. Okay, so, and then this is an incorrect answer, so wrong answer 1 will be that. And you can even just copy and paste this a few times. Wrong answer 1, wrong answer 2, wrong answer 3, wrong answer 4. And let's just set all of those buttons to have each of these wrong answers. So we'll say document dot get element by ID, lowercase id, btn1, oops, needs to be in quotes, btn1 dot inner html equals wrong answer 1. And then the same thing for the others. btn2, oops, 3 and 4, wrong answer 2, 3, and 4. Okay, now we want to use, no, we don't need that anymore. We want to use this correct answer index to put correct answer in as one of the options. So it's just going to be random 1, 2, 3, or 4. And we'll use that random number to construct the ID. See, remember it's btn 1, 2, 3, or 4. So correct answer index, we know that. So correct answer ID will be whatever btn plus the correct answer index. So just paste that in there. Okay, and now we'll just say the same thing we did here. Document.getElement by ID, but instead of btn1, we'll use correct answer ID. So it'll choose one of those 4 randomly, and then instead of putting in wrong answer, we want to put correct answer in here, because that's the variable we created up here that is the right answer they want to choose. Okay, I think this function should be about done. Let's see if it works. Click start. We're given 1 times 9. Perfect. Let's try a few more just to make sure. 11 times 8, we got an 88. Was that in the same spot? I don't remember. 5 times 8, 40. Good, different spot. 12 times 8, 96. I don't know why I'm clicking on it because nothing happens, but 12 times 11 is 132. 6 times 8, 48. Yeah, 8 times 12, 96. It looks like they're always in the bottom right and the top left corners. Let's see if we can find the one that's not. 6 times 12, 7 times 7. Oh, perfect. Yeah, it is different. It is random. Okay, so let's just make it so if they click the right one, then it increases their score. Which means we have to create the high score display as well as their current score. Let's do that really quickly. Let's say div ID equals high score, close div, and then another one right after it, or right below it, div ID equals current score, and then close that div. And let's just put zeros here for now. Oh, okay. Let's not have all that padding in our body anymore. Let's take that off. I just want these ones to be smaller. Oh, because they're divs. It's not the body, it's div. I want this one to be big though. Choices. Let's just do this. We'll say there's a special class called big, or dot big, and that'll have the same stuff. And then we can apply big. We can say class equals big for the operation. Okay. And then also, we don't need that to be big, that's fine. Okay, this is not looking amazing, but that's fine. We're worried more about the functionality, so I'm just going to leave this here. We'll put a label on these two, so high score and current score. Looks good to me. All right. And we want to increase current score every time they answer an answer correctly, or question correctly. So let's say let score equal 0 at the beginning, and then each time they get it correct, the only way we'll know that is if we say through an on-click action, we do the operation ourselves. So we'll say check answer. Let's see, how can we do this? On click equals. Oh yeah, we can do it this way. Check answer with a 1 as our input, meaning button 1 was the one that was clicked. And then on the others we'll put in 2, 3, and 4. Oops, 3 and 4. Okay, so the check answer function we need to create. We'll say function check answer, and then that takes in a variable, so ID or index. Maybe button index would be a good name for this variable that's being passed in. Okay, and then we need to immediately get what answer is on that button that they clicked. So I can simply do this, copy and paste one of these in, and change this to be button index, and it's actually btn plus button index. Yeah, let's do that, btn plus button index, and then it's the inner HTML that we want to look at. So we'll say let answer equal whatever was there, and then we just want to check the operation. So we'll need to we'll need to get these two numbers from the operation, or we can just make this easier on ourselves and make these be global variables, or better yet, make this be a global variable. Let's say correct answer exists outside of that function, and it starts out as 0, or no, we don't even need to give it an answer at the beginning, but that's okay. So correct answer is a global variable. Now we can simply check if answer equals correct answer. So if answer equals correct answer, then we want to, and we want to increase score by 1. So score plus equals 1. Alright, and then we also need to display that. So we've got an ID, current score, and we'll say document.getElementById .innerHTML equals, oops, what did I just do there? There we go. Current score and innerHTML equals, did I capitalize it? Current score, yes. And then score. Alright, let's see if that part works. So it says current score, I say start, 7 times 1, 7. Hey, it increased by 1, perfect. Okay, we also, anytime something is clicked, we should probably change the question. So we'll just say, after it says check answer, we will say next question. Alright, good thing we already have a function for that. So I say start, 3 times 7, 21, 1 times 1, 1. Hey, it looks like it's working, perfect. Let's also make it so if that number is ever higher than that number, it will change that to equal that. Okay, which means we should probably have a variable for high score. So let high score equal, starting out at 0. But then we say if at any point score is greater than high score, then we want to say high score equals score, but also change the HTML to reflect that. So current score, we also want to change high score. Yep, that's the ID we chose. We'll say high score and then high score. Perfect. Okay. So now they should both be changing probably. So let's try a wrong answer first. So 4 times 9 is not 16. So obviously it didn't give me that. 4 times 9. Let's see. Wait, did that give me a new question? Oh, it did, but it happened randomly. Oh, and I got it right. Nice. 3 times 8, or 3 times 6 is 18. 6 times 8, 48. All right, so it looks like they're both changing. That's perfect. Let's also, what do we want to do at this point? I feel like it's working, except we need this game to end when it gets to 0. So everything should be disabled when it gets to 0. Let's do that. So it equals 0. Let's just grab all the 4 buttons like this and say dot disabled equals true. Oops, equals true. And here, and here, and here. Okay, let's try this out. So I say start 7 times 12, 84. 10 times 7, 70. 6 times 2, 12. 1 times 1, 1. 6 times 7, 42. 2 times 8, 16. 8 times, oh, game over. All right, so I only got 6 that time. I want this to remember my highest score, though, even if I click X. Because watch what happens. If I click X and then I reopen it, obviously it just starts over. I want high score to be remembered even when I close it. So here's where I'm going to introduce the idea of persistent data in web development, or at least in the browser. Using JavaScript, we can do something really easy. We've already learned a little bit about how to do that with Java. So let's look at this one. So JavaScript, there's a function called local storage.set. I actually forgot what it is called. Set element? I guess we'll have to look it up. Google. Local storage JavaScript. Set item. That was it. Okay. Local storage.set item, and I think later on we can say, remove item. We don't need to do that. I think we can get item as well, though. Oh yeah, it's right there. Local storage.get item. Okay, so we're going to do something similar. Just like when we create HTML, we have to make IDs for each thing. We're going to create something similar to that for each thing we store in memory in the browser. We'll give it kind of an ID and then a value. So let's do that. Each time we change the high score value, which is right here, we want to set the local storage's memory of that high score as well. So we'll say local storage dot set item, and it'll be set item high score, and then high score. Perfect. Now that alone is not going to do anything because it'll just be sitting there in memory, but our program isn't making use of it yet. So we want our program immediately when they open this website to look at local storage and see if there's a high score. So let's create an onload function. We'll say window.onload equals function, and we will say let no, let's just do this. High score equals local storage dot get item with the name high score. And I believe this is going to be stored as text. Maybe it'll be stored as a number. Let's just try it. So high score equals that, and then we can display just like we did right here. High score equals whatever high score is. Okay, let's just try it out. So start the game, and it says null, because it's trying to find the high score that was saved, and there wasn't anything there. So maybe before we do any saving, or before we just set it to be whatever's there, let's make sure it doesn't equal null. So we'll say let's just store a new variable. We'll say score from browser equals, so yeah, let score from browser equal whatever it finds there, and we'll say if score from browser does not equal null or undefined or whatever, yeah, that works right there, then we'll set high score to equal score from browser. Alright, so start over, and it's a 0, good. Alright, we start the game. 1 times 4 is 4, 12 times 12 is 144, 3 times 9, 27, 7 times 2, 14, 2 times 5 is 10, 2 times 7 is 14, 8 times 10 is 80. Alright, so we're at 7, that's our high score right now. If I refresh the page, it remembered it. And even if I close it and restart it, it remembers it. Perfect. And the only way that you can make it not remember this is if you clear the cache or in some other way change that local storage to remove it or to get rid of everything. I mean, one thing you could do, you could just say local storage inside of your browser console. You could say local storage.clear, and that way it'll be cleared. So it says undefined, but it actually did it. So watch this. Now it's a 0. Okay, that was kind of a long tutorial, but we're done. So yeah, maybe you can make this look a little cooler. One thing I guess we could do just to make sure that they're getting it all correct is we could say if the answer is ever not correct, then disable all the buttons and then the game is over. But yeah, there you go. That is the game.